Hey, what's happening, better sax people out there? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk to a great saxophone player named Alex Hahn. You may have seen him on Instagram, lots of different places. If while we wait for some people to connect and show up, I'd love to see you guys say hello in the comments and know where you're tuning in from. So we got Chip is here. Chip put this comment up a little bit earlier. See you guys in here in a little bit. Hey, Chip. Daniel. Daniel, why is this the same time I have to sit down and eat dinner with my kids and wife? Well, sorry, Daniel. You can watch the replay. And by the way, hello to everyone who's tuning in for the replay. And there you are. Hey, Chip. Welcome. And Kikio, hello. And Michael from Austria. All right, welcome. All right, so today's guest his name is Alex Hahn. He is, I call him a young artist. He's a bit younger than me, but he's not all that young. He's won in his, he's relatively early in his career. He's already won multiple awards and has performed with some legendary musicians like Herbie Hancock, Esperanza Spalding, Bob Mintzer, Russell Ferrante, Bob Reynolds, and more. Alex has a new course out and apparently a new album he just told me about. So we're going to be asking you about that. And plus I'm going to be asking, I have a whole list of fun saxophone related questions to ask him. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him. So hopefully it'll be kind of spontaneous. Let's welcome Alex Hahn. Hey, man.
What's up, Jay?
What's happening? It's happening. Thanks for being here. I just want to say hello to
Thanks for having me. And what's up, everybody in the comments? Thanks for saying hello.
Yeah, so we got Gary from Barbados. Ooh, what's the weather like in Barbados, Gary? And Javier from London. What's up, Javier? I'm going to be in London. If all goes well, I'm going to be in London next month. My first traveling in a long time.
Nice.
And Michael Smitty in Pasadena. Oh, you're up early. And you're in LA too, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for getting up early, man. I'm in France, so we're pretty far away, time zone wise, but we made it happen.
For sure. Yeah, this is pretty early for me. I'm usually up around this time, so.
Nice.
I'm a jazz musician. What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, you're also a professor and other things. So anyway, and we were just talking about this earlier. When you're a musician in today's world, you got to do, it's not just playing a gig at night. There's a lot of things you got to do.
Yes.
Generally busy all day long. Yep. And we got Sung Lin's music. Yeah. Welcome. And Gerald. Hey, Gerald. And from Germany, Zip Bones. I bet you have, do you play video games? That sounds like a video game handle. And Rob from Romania. Hey, Rob. And Hussein from Stockholm. Welcome, Hussein. Nice. have you got 20 questions? Hey, man, listen, I'm going to ask some questions, but if we have time at the end, we're going to take some of your questions for sure. So keep them ready. And, maybe we're asking some of the same questions. Arthur from Zambia. Wow, nice. So we got,
very cool. Check
it out. And we got Korea as well. So we got people from all over, many continents. Again, I love it. Yeah. And from Juan from Buenos Aires. Nice. Okay. So you do play video games, but you also play the alto sax. Listen, man, all right. This is a question that's not on my list. Alex, you play video games?
I have a lot of friends who actually play video games competitively. And growing up, I played like sports video games like Madden and baseball games. I'm really into sports. I'm a huge sports fan. But now I don't really play games. I play Roller Coaster Tycoon sometimes, which is like a throwback computer game. I'm not sure many people know that game. Yeah, I don't really play video games too much anymore, unless it's just like casually with friends. I have friends who play Super Smash and are super into that.
Yeah. I know a lot. It's true. It's funny. There's a lot of jazz musicians that are really into video games.
Yeah.
In, my experience, and I always thought there was some sort of correlation. At least this is my excuse for playing video games. It's like some sort of correlation between music and playing video games. But I'm like you. I had to stop. I don't have any time for
Yeah.
video games, so I don't play.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people like Lewis Cole, if you guys know Lewis Cole and his band Knower. And I have a friend, Kyle Fade, his big band is called the Kyle Fade Dance Party. And my other friend, John Hatamiya, was an amazing trombonist. Like, so much of their music is, influenced by video game music. There is so much incredible video game music out there. And there's so much of, my generation of musicians that have, inspired that or been inspired by their original music, or by the original music in those games to influence their own original music. So there's a huge tie-in with music as well.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing now. You get like the 8-bit big band, and
right, exactly.
Well, that's exactly. A killing band, by the way. Okay, a couple more people are tuning in, and we're going to jump into questions. Channing from Mississippi, nice. Okay, so first question, and I want you to just jump in and talk right about this. But let's talk about this new course you've got. Tell us about the new course and how this whole thing works. It's on Soundslice. What is that?
Yes. So the new course is called Real Alex Hahn Volume 4, Transcriptions from my Instagram videos. And for those of you who do follow me on Instagram, I like to post videos of myself playing over jazz standards that everybody knows. Take the A Train, Solar, Cherokee, the blues, rhythm changes. It's a good way for me to practice and remember these tunes, number one, but a chance for you guys to learn vocabulary, learn about these tunes, kind of in an indirect way. And what's really cool about this Soundslice program is it shows graphic notation as you hear me play the video. So not only are you getting the sheet music, but you're actually hearing me play the video. And what's really cool is it's a completely interactive software where you can change the key, you can change the tempo, you can loop certain measures that you're struggling with. You can zoom, you can turn off the chords, you can turn on the chords, you can change it to piano, you can see the sound waves. I mean, there's like so many different things that this company is doing. The software is really incredible. And this is my third time releasing third time. The first course that I did is just on my website. But my third course was Soundslice. And again, it's completely interactive. It really helps you understand how these solos are related to the harmonies. Again, it's improving your jazz vocabulary. It's improving your knowledge of these tunes, your knowledge of harmony. I really suggest it if you're looking to do any of those things.
Hey, so I got a clip that I want to show everybody of this.
Sure.
I got a couple clips. So the first one is just like one of these Instagram clips that you posted. This is like a D flat blues. Let's check
cool.
that out. Yeah, so that's great. And I love all these clips, at least the ones that I've seen, I like them because they're short and concise. And,
yes.
Very much a complete sort of musical idea, or a unit, like that's a chorus of blues or one chorus of on a standard, and checking out the different transcriptions. It's almost, they're really, it's almost like they're very well thought out, and I know that's like improvised, but you're like improvising in a way that it's like, okay, I'm assuming you're thinking, right, I want students to be able to transcribe this. I want it to be very clear and very, and I also liked how you, like on the standards, a lot of them you're starting out with the melody.
Yeah.
Or you're holding a lot of the melody and then kind of going into, so it's kind of a mixture of both. So it's like an etude transcribed solo / phrasing of the melody, it's kind of hitting a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think what's incredible about Instagram currently is that there is so many unbelievable saxophone players sharing what they have to say. And I thought to myself, as I started to kind of think about these solos and create these solos, that I don't need to be another saxophone player who's just shredding on Instagram. I want to think melodically. I want to think differently than what you may be hearing. And not to say that shredding is bad, because obviously, I mean, I think about people like Chad LB is a monster saxophone player. But for me, I wanted to take a different approach, and it was a good way to not only practice this for myself, but a good kind of, a way for students to get a magnifying glass into, okay, I like when I hear Paul Desmond, I like when I hear Chet Baker, Lester Young, Miles Davis, these people that play slower ideas, that play melodically. Now, what does that look like? And give them, a chance to look at the music and see, oh, okay, it's just using the melody, or oh, I just used the rhythms of the melody, or oh, I just used, some simple scales. And there's so many cool things to dive into in this melodic sense. So yes, I definitely did, think about beforehand. I want to think melodically. I want to think about using the melody. I want to think about how we're able to, really play the song rather than just playing the changes.
Right. Yeah, and then I got this other clip so we can show everybody how this is like the sample. If you go and I put a link in the description below, so anybody who wants to check out the course on the Soundslice website, click that link and it'll take you there. But over there, you're going to see this is like the sample of how it works. So check this out. Yeah, so that's a Solar, great Miles tune, now jazz standard, great changes to play over. And
Yeah.
I was expecting that. I mean, that's great. So like you started with the melody, but your own phrasing of the melody with some fills in there, you're kind of demonstrating how to play like a really good chorus on it, something that, and that was a little bit of shredding because that's a fast tempo one, but they're not all
Right.
at that tempo, right?
No, definitely not. I think that's the fastest one. There's one that I do on Cherokee. That's a little bit again up tempo, but there's a lot of blues, a lot of rhythm changes. There's a lot of other standards that are pretty swinging. And if you noticed on the D flat blues recording that Jay shared, the metronome said 40 BPM. Obviously, I wasn't playing at 40 BPM. I just had the metronome on beat 4 only. That's something that I learned from my professor, Brad Lely, when I was at University of North Texas. If you guys don't know Brad Lely, he played lead alto for the Basie Band for a long time. He played lead alto for Harry Connick Jr. He was Harry Connick Jr.'s music director for a hot minute. And I learned so much from my time at North Texas. And that's one of the exercises that we did all the time. Putting that metronome on 4, really focusing on you creating the time rather than just relying on the metronome.
So you put the metronome at 40 BPM, and then that's your beat 4 where it clicks?
Yes. So then it's like 160 is the real tempo.
Right. Yeah. So you don't have the metronome. So it would be cool for you to demonstrate that for people if possible. I don't know if you have your horn because there's one thing, some people might need to see it.
No, I'll count it because it's a little bit tricky. Can you hear that okay?
Yeah.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's what the metronome on beat 1 only. A 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4. But you put it on 4, 4, 1, a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba-do dee da boo, ba-do dee da do dee da. I mean, it's to me, beat 4 is like so swinging. When you think about drummers and they have that cross stick on beat 4, I mean, it just swings so hard. And so like that's what I'm pretending this metronome is that drummer with that cross stick on four. It's so swing. I'm trying to make the metronome swing is my goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is a great exercise, great way to practice. So some of these you're playing with like some backing tracks, but a lot of them you're just playing with metronome accompaniment like that.
Yes.
Awesome. And that's something I guess you do work a lot on practicing standards and improvising just with no accompaniment, except for other than the metronome?
Yeah, it's super helpful because it really helps with clarity. Like my goal when I'm improvising is always clarity. It's clarity of my sound, clarity of the time, clarity of the harmony, clarity of the melodies that I'm playing. And when you strip away everything and it's just you, that means everything is on you. You are creating the time, you're creating the harmony, you're creating the melodies, you're creating everything. And it's a good goal to, you know, I ask myself this question of like, can I hear the harmony after my solo is finished? Like, can I go back and listen to the recording and do I hear the harmony or not? Was I clear enough in the harmony? And when you strip away and play by yourself or just play with the metronome, it really helps you focus on the harmony and really helps you focus on the melody. You're not hiding, you know, with the backing track.
Yeah, sure. You have to kind of be part of the rhythm section yourself. I mean, you have to kind of take that responsibility. Whereas with the backing track, a bad habit people can fall into is like, oh, well, that's going to keep the place for me or keep the time for me.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Let's move on, man. Let's move on. But yeah, but the link is in the description below for anybody who wants to check out this new one as well as the other ones, the other volumes of these that you've done. Awesome. How many tracks are there?
20 solos. Again, there's a couple different blues, a couple different rhythm changes and some different keys. I mentioned Cherokee, Solar, There Will Never Be Another You, But Not For Me. Again, a ton of Solar as we listen to, you know, a ton of great standards that everybody should know, a good way to dive into, again, improving your vocabulary, improving your phrasing, and just building your improvisation.
Oh yeah. And for anyone who's, you know, not already following Alex on Instagram, I put his Instagram, it's real Alex Hahn. I put that in the description below too. Definitely follow Alex because he's posting this sort of great stuff all the time. And it's great just to, you know, as you're scrolling through to listen. And now, you know, he's going to be putting out these transcription volumes of all this content as well, which is fantastic. All right. Now let's get into some more questions. Let's see what we got here. Where are my questions? Okay, let's talk about this. I'm sure everyone wants to ask this stuff anyway. So what's your saxophone setup? You know, horn, mouthpiece, everything. Go.
So for the longest time, I played a Sommer Mark 6. My dad's a saxophone player, and he played lead alto for Glenn Miller's band back in the 80s, did a couple tours with them. And he's been a music educator for over 30 years. He just recently retired. But he was the reason why I started playing saxophone. And so he had a Mark 6 that he played on. And so when I first started, I had just like a local music shop, like beginner student model horn. And so I would get home and I'd be like, Dad, can I practice on your Mark 6? Like, please, can I practice on your Mark 6? Like, please, it's so good. I want to practice on it. And so I said, yeah, go practice on it. And then my senior year of high school, he got me my own Mark 6. And so I played that for a number of years. And it wasn't until I got hooked up with Eastman, Andreas Eastman, where I fell in love with their saxophones basically right away. And so for now, I play the Eastman 52nd Street Alto, an incredible horn. What I like is it's a little bit rounder, it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit warmer than the sound of the Mark 6. I really feel like I can play myself on it, which I really, really love. My mouthpiece is a Meyer 7M, just at the local music shop. It's like $85. No fancy New York Meyer, no fancy, anything. I just play a stock Meyer that I fell in love with, that I've been playing since high school, basically. I play on the Rico H ligature, and my reeds are Diodario. Let's see. I got it over here. Diodario Select Jazz 3 medium unfiled.
Nice. So 3 medium on a 7, on a Meyer 7. Okay, cool. Yeah, because that's great. You get a great, nice, warm, dark sound, with a nice little amount of edge. But you got to get lucky with those Meyers too, 'cause
Oh,
they're not.
totally.
There's a bit of inconsistency, but if you get a good one, then that's fantastic. You never had it refaced, that one?
No, it's funny. I had a lesson with Bob Shepard one time, and he has his own line of mouthpieces, as I'm sure everybody here knows. And he took a look at my Meyer, my alto, and he's like, "Man, I could find a mouthpiece better than this so easily if I just went on woodwind and brass winds." And I'm like, "What? Man, this mouthpiece is great." So he's giving me a hard time about it. But yeah, it's just something like, I love the way it sounds. I love the flexibility. I know exactly how it's going to play. I've been playing on it for years. Yeah, it's just something I'm so used to now. Yeah, so I really like it. Again, even though it was only $85, even though it's not some fancy remake or whatever. So
You don't resist the pressure. So
right.
change that, Meyer, man. Cool. All right. So the Eastman, yeah, I tried the Eastman 52nd Street at NAMM.
Okay.
Last time I had it. Yeah, it's great saxophone, man. I liked some of those little like the flute sort of keys and the.
Oh yeah, that's the new model they have coming out. It's called the Rue St. George. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's designed. The key work, the ergonomics, is all designed by a flute maker, and so it feels unbelievable to play.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit closer to the Mark VI in terms of the core, the sound. The bore is a little bit. I don't know what's the right word. A little bit more, I guess, smaller bore, so the sound is a little bit more direct, like your Mark VI would be. But yeah, the ergonomics is like the best feeling saxophone I've ever played in my entire life.
And that one is not out yet?
I haven't followed up with him about it. I thought it was going to come out this summer, but I don't remember seeing an announcement. But stay tuned, because it's an amazing saxophone.
Yeah, I remember enjoying testing that one out. Yeah.
They've been working on it for a minute.
Yeah, and I love the 52nd Street too. I tried those too, man. All their horns are great.
Yeah, they do really great work, and amazing people too. Like, I'm endorsed by them, and they are so incredibly supportive. They really care about their artists, and I can't say enough good things about Eastman.
So do you still have your Mark VI?
I do. And that's the question when I post like a throwback Thursday or something on Instagram. It'll be like, with my Mark VI. And they're like, "Wait, is that a Mark VI?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I used to play on a Mark VI." And they're like, "Oh, so you're selling it?" And I'm like, "No, not quite."
Yeah. So when you go back every now and then, I imagine you say, let me see how this stacks up to the Mark VI. Do you still do that from time to time?
I've done it maybe once, and it was like 4 or 5 years ago. So I don't really do it really often. It just stays in the case.
Right. Maybe you should do it. But the thing is, just to reconfirm what you already know. It's
of course
you prefer the new horn. It's funny because this is one of those things. So many, I think, finally people are accepting that it's possible for other modern saxophones to be better, or at least preferred by certain players to Mark VIs. Yeah, which is about time. I think.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great roster. I mean, Bob Mintzer is the one who kind of hooked me to it in the first place. And so he's been playing their horns, exclusively for a hot second now. And then I do the same. And again, they have an amazing roster of saxophone players who play their stuff.
Yeah. All right. I was going to ask you what you like about Eastman saxophones, but you already did. So let's get into some practice stuff. I love to ask people like stuff like this, like, how do you start your practice sessions?
Good question. To be completely honest, I haven't been practicing very much lately. And by I haven't been practicing much lately, I mean zero. I've been working really hard on this album that's coming out, as you mentioned, that book that just came out last week. So I've been working on a bunch of projects. I just started at the LA High School for the Arts. My teaching last week, so it's been like a million things kind of starting all at once. So I haven't been practicing a bunch, but it's nice to get a break sometimes. But when I do practice, I kind of have the same warm-up routine every time. It's like a 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much I do of it. I always start with tone. I always start with some sort of tone exercises, some sort of long tones. I have a bunch of different tone exercises. And then I go into technique. I do scales, I do arpeggios, I do, a bunch of things with the metronome just to get my fingers and everything kind of feeling in the correct spot. I have a mentor and a friend, I'm sure you know, Miguel Zenon, amazing saxophone player. And I remember, I don't know if it was him who told me or somebody who told me that his warm-up is 3 hours. And so I'm like, okay, I'm never going to get to that level, but I want to have some sort of warm-up of like, okay, here's something that I do every day or every time that I practice. And it's the two most important things to me is tone and technique, because having those two things allows me to improvise on Cherokee, allows me to play a nice ballad, allows me to, do whatever I need, do whatever the music needs. And so I'm always practicing tone, always practicing technique.
Nice. Okay. So then, on my next question, that, what's the last thing? How do you finish your practice sessions?
I always like to keep in mind why I started playing the saxophone. And that's the reason why I started, was because all my friends were doing it and it's fun. And so it's so important in the rat race of trying to get better and the millions of things you need to practice to have fun in the practice room, is to take some time to play for fun. So I usually end the practice session by playing a standard I've played a million times, just exploring, just improvising, or playing completely free, or, playing along with a James Brown record, or playing along with, a Oscar Peterson trio or the Count Basie band, something that keeps my creativity going and reminds myself that, like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be fun. Because sometimes when you're practicing, say Cherokee, and you're struggling and you're frustrated and you've been going at it for 2 hours, you've been going at it for 2 weeks, and you haven't seen any improvement, it is so easy to get frustrated. It is so easy to get overwhelmed with everything that we need to get better at. But to remind yourself that, this is supposed to be fun, make sure we find time in your practice session to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we don't, then it makes it that much harder to get in the practice room the next day, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I want to say one more thing too. Like sometimes, and maybe if you guys in the comments want to say that, or want to see if this happened to you too, sometimes I get the horn out and I start to think about all of the things I need to get better at. And then I just put the horn back in the case. I'm like, I'm not going to make a dent into any of this. There is so much to get better at. Like this is such a uphill climb. And that is a very real feeling. But I like to keep in mind that my goal of the practice session is to get better at one thing. And if I can get better at one thing, then I can start to stack one day at a time. And really the only goal that we should have is, are we better than the last time that we practiced? And when we keep that in mind, it gives us some perspective. It makes it less overwhelming. And we have to remember that, practicing in this musical journey that we're all on, Jay and I included, like, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like, we're not going to be some finished pro. Oh, we turned 40. Oh, okay, we're done. Oh, we turned 60. Okay, now we're done practicing. Now we're done. Like Chris Potter, who's someone who's been really kind to me and friendly to me. I just talked to him the other day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm like finally starting to figure out some sound stuff that I've been meaning to work on." And I'm like, "Here's freaking Chris Potter, one of the greatest saxophone players in the world, and he's still figuring stuff out." Sure. Sonny Rollins practiced until he was 90. Jimmy Heath practiced until he was 90. So it's like we have to keep in mind that one day at a time, one practice session at a time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Music isn't going anywhere, so let's be patient with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of it as like, you have this huge bucket, and I mean, this enormous bucket. And if every day you could just add a drop to it, You know what I mean? But the thing is, you'll never fill it. It'll never get filled no matter what you do.
Right.
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 But you can,
Yeah, it's a good metaphor to think about. I like it.
Okay, cool, man. All right. So now this is like a question. This is just for fun because obviously
Okay.
this next one is like impossible to really answer. But if you had to choose one thing for students to work on, you know, like what is the most important thing? And all of these are important, but like what's the most important? And just for fun, sound technique, language, time, or repertoire. I know it's not a fair question, and I know.
To me, I would go with sound first, because when you listen to somebody play, the first thing you're hearing is their tone, is their sound. And I think about players like Paul Desmond, for example, who has this beautiful, warm, dark, airy type sound. And he doesn't play technically at all. So to me, if he can make it work just because of his tone, like to me, that's so much of the reason why I listen to my favorite players. Desmond, Cannonball, Chris Potter that I mentioned. All of them have such great tones. I listen Marshall Royal, lead alto player for Count Basie. Johnny Hodges, like the tone goat, who's like the greatest alto tone of all time, in my opinion. Like, just tone to me is the first thing that I'm hearing when I listen to somebody play. And if you're playing with this like crazy weird tone, it's a little bit of a turn off to me. But yeah, tone to me is the most important thing.
Nice. Yeah, and like to follow up on that for like since I made the question, which is a kind of ridiculous question because you got to work on all those things. But I like to say to people, all of the other things, technique and time and language and repertoire, when you're working on those things, it's still a sound exercise. You know what I mean? You're still playing with your most beautiful sound.
That's
even
deep.
if you're
I like it.
Technique, Cool, man. All right. Let's you've already mentioned a bunch of these, but I'm going to ask you this one. Who is your most important mentor and why?
Good question. I'll give you somebody who you may not know, and then somebody who you definitely know. So when I was at USC doing my master's, I was a teaching assistant for this guy, Jason Goldman. And Jason Goldman is an amazing saxophone player. He produces pop music. He's a big band arranger, writes for big band and strings. He's like one of the most hardworking musicians I've ever met, one of the most talented musicians I've ever met, just an incredible musician and incredible teacher. He's one of those teachers that would be like, always tells you exactly how it is. Like there's like, oh, that sucked. Here's why. Here's how to work on it. Like very direct. And to me, those are teachers that I love. I don't want to hear that I sound good in a lesson. I'm here to learn. So tell me that I don't sound good and tell me how to work on it. So he's one of those guys that really was super honest with me. But the reason why he's been so important to me is because when I was at USC, he was working on producing and contracting the Michael Bublé record, or Michael Bublé's newest record. And so I was being his teaching assistant for the year. And he ended up getting so busy with producing the record and flying back and forth to Bublé's house, who lives in Canada, and like just so incredibly busy that I had to cover all of his classes. At USC, I was teaching like his theory class, his big band arranging class, like some of his lessons, like doing everything on top of my schoolwork. He ended up getting so busy that I actually covered his high school teaching gig, which was Loxa, which is where I am now, for the whole semester. So like here I am like doing all of these things for him because he's so busy. Now, part of that was my job, so I had to do it. But part of it, I was like, man, he's going to need a saxophone player for this Michael Bublé recording. So I want to show him that I have my, what together, and I can handle anything that he throws at me. Comes down to it, he needs one more saxophone player for his recording, and he ended up choosing me. So I played second tenor, which for those of you who play second tenor, the worst chair in the big band. You get all the inner parts, you get all the repeated notes. Terrible. So
Yeah.
I'm playing second tenor in this big band. It's at Capitol Records. Jeff Hamilton on drums. Bublé's there singing live with us. Like, it was my first moment that I was like, okay, I've made it some sort. You know, I felt so proud of myself. Sorry to say that, but I did. And then it comes time to do the second record. And he ended up putting me on lead alto this time. And then we recently just did the third record where I played lead alto again. He also got contracted, I don't know if I can say this, but I am, to do Rod Stewart's new record. And I'm playing lead alto on that too. So like, he's been one of those people that's been not only so important in my own development, but been somebody who's given me opportunities to further my professional career. And he is so kind and so honest and an amazing musician. And he's been so important to me in terms of what I've learned from him, but the opportunities that he's given me as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of the things about great mentors often is not only is there like the teaching and the inspiration, but often there's also this other side of, you know, lifting you up into the professional world, which, you know, and I know because a lot of people's mentor stories have, you know, similar tones to like what you just said.
Yeah.
So cool.
And then to add someone who you probably definitely know, again, I've been super fortunate to work with, you know, Bob Mintzer, Chris Potter, Dick Oates, and all of them, Jimmy Heath, rest in peace. And I've learned so much from them, but somebody who has also been incredibly kind to me is Herbie Hancock, who I got to study with at the Thelonious Monk Institute. Now it's known as the Herbie Hancock Institute, but when I was there, it was the Thelonious Monk Institute. He's somebody that always answers my texts, always answers my calls, and it's absolutely mind-blowing that Herbie Hancock is answering my texts and answering my phone calls. Like, I literally just can't believe it. But he always takes the time to listen to my music if I send him something. Even if we're just chatting, like we were chatting about Tesla cars. He loves Tesla. He loves technology. We were chatting about that the other day. Like, he's just somebody who is a legend of this music, and to have any sort of relationship with him is incredibly special and important to me.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for that. All right. So now I'm going to move on to some, like, those were like the long form answer questions. Now I just want
you to sorry for all these long answers.
No, but that was the idea. These are questions. That was the idea. But now I've got a list of questions. This is, you know, like the lightning round.
Ooh, rapid fire. Okay.
Rapid fire questions. So I just want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your head. And, you know, again, these things are like, some of them are a little bit silly, you know, we're not going to hold you to these answers. So just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Here's the first one. What jazz recording have you listened to the most?
One of my favorite recordings is Kenny Garrett with Pat Metheny and Brian Blade playing Sing a Song of Song. It's this live recording where he gets the audience to sing. He's like improvising over the audience. He's playing duo with Brian Blade on drums. I listen to that every day in high school, and I go back to it every once in a while, and it blows my mind every single time.
Hey, have you seen Kenny Garrett live with his band? Like
I've seen him live twice, once in high school and one recently. And I met him and got a picture with him, and he's the nicest human I've ever met. He's so nice, and obviously sounds incredible still. He has an album coming out too soon too. I'm excited to hear it.
Oh yeah. Awesome. All right, Kenny Garrett. Okay, good. Who's your favorite alto player?
Ooh, that's so tough. I would say Cannonball is the swaggiest alto player, swaggiest saxophone player of all time. Like, to me, the style, the vibrato, the glissandos, the scoops, the bends, like, there's just so much personality and style. So Cannonball is definitely one of my favorites. Kenny Garrett, obviously. I mean, impossible.
No, just one.
Yeah. All right. Cannonball.
You could change it tomorrow. It's cool, man.
Cannonball.
All right.
Cannonball.
All right. Tenor. Favorite tenor player?
Ooh. Probably the one I've listened to the most, probably Sonny Rollins. My favorite records of his, Way Out West. And there's this amazing live concert in Denmark. It's an hour concert where he's just playing standards with a trio. Unbelievable. I was just listening to it with a friend the other day. His sound, his phrasing, the way that he plays with melody, as we were talking about before. Sonny Rollins.
Nice. Okay, here's one. Favorite non-saxophone player?
So Herbie, as I mentioned, but one who's been incredibly, I've transcribed him a bunch and listened to his music a lot, is Pat Metheny, amazing guitar player. I love his compositions. Speaking of melody, every solo that he plays, it sounds like he took the time to write it. It's so perfect melodically. Makes so much sense. So yeah, Pat Metheny.
Nice. Okay, here's a fun one. If you had to choose a different instrument other than saxophone, which would it be?
Ooh. I want to learn electric bass. So I'm thinking about getting one. I wish I was better at piano.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, just for fun, what's your favorite chord quality?
Probably minor 7.
Nice. Okay, surprising. Okay. All right. Ballads or burning up tempo?
Oh, definitely ballads. Not even close.
Okay, cool. And what's your favorite standard chord progression to blow over?
Like standard tune?
Yeah, like a standard. Yeah, or it could be anything. It could be a
Man.
tune or just a chord progression.
Well, geez, I'm kind of folding on the lightning round part of this question.
Don't think too much. First one that comes to you.
I mean, 251 is simple. There's so much you can do over it.
No, but I mean more like a like a form.
A tune. One of the first tunes I ever learned was "There Will Never Be Another You." I always love playing that tune. Great changes, long to 2/5s, super fun stuff.
Yeah, I know. I mean, these are impossible to answer, but okay, put you on the spot. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks for answering all those questions. Now, I'm gonna look in the comments because there's a bunch of comments. I haven't been looking. I'm gonna look, and if you guys, now is the time. If you got any questions for Alex, we'll take a few questions. Yeah, you got a time for a few questions, Alex?
Of course.
Okay.
The only question I won't answer is how I do my hair. That's a secret. That's a joke, by the way.
Okay, because I was going to ask you that. Okay, well, here we go. This is interesting. So here's one. Shadow Unanimous. I think this is another video game player. But what's your studio Instagram setup?
So I have a nice microphone and like studio monitors and all that type of stuff. But to do that for Instagram every day, I'm way too lazy. So I just set up my phone on my music stand and that's it.
Nice.
So no fancy setup or anything. Again, if you can kind of see my my studio setup, got the monitors, got the Apollo Twin, all that kind of stuff. But it's just too much work to do that for every video, so I just do it on my iPhone.
I hear you, man. It's funny because I saw in one of your videos you've got like the, what is it? The you got that ribbon mic. What is that one called? The
oh yes, it's Sterling.
Oh, that okay. I saw that mic. I thought it was the other one, but you got that mic there, but I can tell the audio is just coming from the phone.
Right.
Like, okay, that's interesting. That's one way to do it, you know. Okay. Now there's a whole long conversation going on in this thing. So let's see if we got any questions. I have a request. No, mostly just mostly a lot of commentary. Okay, here's one from Javier. Making the changes versus playing from ear versus internalized licks, all of them one way better than the other. So I think this, just to clarify this question, I think what Javier is asking is, what's kind of more important, or which should we be studying, working on making the changes, or approaching tunes from just using your ear, or approaching tunes from licks, which we kind of prefer to use terms like language, vocabulary,
Right.
Or maybe a mixture of all those things.
Yeah, I would say a mixture of all those things. To me, the least important is the licks. because whenever and it's kind of, to me, transcribing is the most important thing that you can be doing, Javier, and for anybody who's still listening, transcribing is the most important thing. But I think there's a lot of people miss some steps in the transcription process that can be super helpful to answer this question, Javier. Because number one, what everybody does is step one, which is learn the notes, learn the rhythms. That's great. You're learning the vocabulary, you're teaching, you're helping your technique, you're, kind of building this muscle memory in terms of what these ideas feel like, what these ideas sound like. All of that is great. The second step should be to make sure that you are learning the articulation, the sound, the style, the phrasing, the vibratos, all of the details of the music. Because what that starts to do, as I was mentioning with Cannonball before, is that starts to inform your musical personality and the way that you like to phrase things and the way that you like to articulate and the way that you like to sound, the way that you like to use vibrato. And, I've taken so many things in terms of articulation from Kenny Garrett. I love the way that Charlie Parker's eighth notes feel time-wise. I love all the glissandos and the bends and the scoops of the Cannonballs. I also love smooth jazz. So Eric Marienthal and his grace notes and all his smooth stuff that he plays, like all of that mix of saxophoneness is how I like to play. So to me, that's an important part too. But the most important part is taking the time to analyze why these ideas sound great. Like what drew you to this Charlie Parker solo? What drew you to this Joe Henderson solo? What drew you to this? And what I mean by that is taking the time to analyze how what the soloist played relates to the harmony, relates to the chord. Like, oh, Charlie Parker just played an arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7. Oh, arpeggios sound great over this chord, over any chord. Oh, great. I can use arpeggios to build my vocabulary. So not only are you using the licks, but you're using the concepts behind the licks to build your vocabulary. And what I'm interested in is not just building licks, but building concepts. Because if I can build concepts, that means I can manipulate those concepts in hundreds of different ways. So take that arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7. Now I can play 3, 5, 7, 1. I can play 5, 7, 1, 3. I can play 7, 1, 3, 5. I can play 1, 3, 7, 5, 9. I can play all those variations ascending. I can play all those variations descending. And now just from that Charlie Parker lick, now I have hundreds of variations. So to me, playing by ear, yes, important. Making the changes, that clarity that we talked about before, incredibly important. The best way to practice that, transcribe your favorite players, analyze and dive deep into why those licks sound great with that harmony. And then we're building concepts and not just the licks.
Nice. All right. Okay, here's one from Asel. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm looking at your. Oh, looks like you got I like your little profile picture there. So, improv technique currently working on. Are you working on any particular improvisation technique, Alex?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What do you mean?
Like if are you working on something in particular? Like
that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Okay, I see the question. Yeah, I see the question. Yeah, over the pandemic, I've been really trying to focus on what I want to sound like. And that may sound really weird, but like, especially when I was in the Monk Institute, I was playing, with these world-class musicians, and I felt like I had to play like, modern jazz alto. And over the pandemic, I've really tried to think about, my own musical personality, as I was mentioning, and how I want to play. And through that has come, thinking more melodically, has come really focusing on sound and really focusing on my time. And so those three things, I know those are very broad kind of concepts there, but to me, when I have good melody, when I play with good time, when I play with good tone, that's a winning combination. And so something that I really tried really hard to practice and to prepare for my new album that's coming out, not this Friday, but next Friday. You can check out the single on YouTube. It's called The Beginning. It's also on Spotify, any streaming platform. I really tried to think hard about those three things. And so anytime I'm playing a standard, anytime I'm playing the blues, anytime I'm playing rhythm changes or my own original music, I'm trying to focus on tone. I'm trying to focus on time. I'm trying to focus on melody.
Yeah, I like that. That's great advice. And this is something that I think happens to a lot of people, whether you're, I guess, going to school, but also I imagine this must happen in this new age of like Instagram and people hearing a lot of other players play a certain way. And then that might influence people to say, oh, everyone's playing that way, I have to play that way. Even
right.
if that isn't like your personal taste or like the thing that makes you want to play. Maybe you want to play more like, I don't know, Lester Young or something like that, let's say. So I think it's super important that no matter where you are, it's important to focus on the thing that brings you pleasure in the music. And you don't have to play the same way as everyone else, just because everyone's, doing a certain style. And, that's something to be careful of, especially when you go to school, because I know there's a lot of pressure at, at school or in environments like New York or in certain environments where there's a lot of heavy players. A lot of people feel this pressure, like, well, I have to play like that because that's like the only way to play.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
Good question, Aziel. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, here's a good question from Chip. Who's one living jazz artist you'd like to record with?
My dream gig is play with the Pat Metheny group. Lau Mays, unfortunately, who is Pat Metheny's collaborator for that group, passed away. So I'm not sure if they're going to be doing any more tours or any more recordings, but Pat Metheny would be the artist I would love to record with. His compositions, his writing, he's somebody I've looked up to for the longest, ever since high school. Is one of my very first favorite artists. Unfortunately, Chris Potter currently plays with him, so pretty tough competition. So we'll see.
Tough gig to get, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question from Micah. How do you stick to one practice plan, achieving a specific goal when there's so much going on around and so many great teachers on the net? I think what Mike is saying is, like, you're being bombarded with stuff to practice, stuff, people to study with. How do you choose a path? Or what's a strategy?
That's a fantastic question. As I was saying before, trying to focus on one thing per practice session can really help with that. Also, I'm the type of person, and you've kind of been hearing me talk, and my brain is like always moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. And so it's hard for me to focus for a long period of time, which is why I can't sleep at night, which is like a whole nother conversation for another day. But I practice in like 10-minute intervals. There's this great YouTube channel that's called like Wooden Metronome, and they have 10-minute videos of just the metronome going for 10 minutes. And I practice along to that 10-minute video, and then I take a break. And then I practice another 10-minute video, and then I take a break. And that really helps me focus on one thing at a time, really allowing my brain to slow down and really focus on, again, just 10 minutes. Now, obviously, that doesn't quite answer your question, Micah. But to me, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before of what is important to you. What is the goal that you are looking to achieve the most? Is it, I want to develop my sound. I want to develop my technique. I want to play with this person. I want to go to this school. I want to do this. I want to do that. And when you write down those things, it makes it real. It makes it attainable. And so something that I always have in my phone or on a piece of paper or on my computer is a list of goals that I'm striving for. Because what that does is it helps you focus your energy every time you practice. Any time that you talk to your friend, any time that you talk to a teacher, any time that you talk to a mentor, any time that you're at a jam session, you have specific things that you're focused on. And in the chaos of getting better and practicing and all these different things, it is so easy to get lost in that chaos. But if we have specific goals in mind that's important to you, is that helps you focus every practice session. Like, oh, I really want to develop my tone. I'm probably not going to spend 3 hours practicing giant steps. I want to practice an hour on tone. I want to play along with Marshall Royal. I want to practice along with Sonny Rollins. I want to practice along with Lester Young. I want to practice along with Ben Webster. And I want to internalize that tone. And that helps you focus in terms of getting better. So think about what's important to you. And then it's having the discipline to stick with it 10 minutes at a time. And that's, sorry, I want to add one more thing. I just thought of something.
Yeah,
sorry, my brain is going crazy right now. Again, I hate to keep name dropping, but I was talking to Chris Potter about this exact thing the other day. And he was telling me that this, music and saxophone and life takes an incredible amount of self-discipline. When my students go home or Jay's students go home, or, when you go home, your teacher isn't there to hold your hand through the practice session. It takes a certain amount of discipline to stay focused and to stay effective. And obviously I am here, Jay is here, and your teachers and mentors and friends are here to help you along the way. But it's up to you to stay disciplined, to be focused and efficient. And again, 10 minutes at a time is all that I do. That's all that I can focus on when I have the horn in my mouth. And sometimes even that's a struggle. But 10 minutes at a time, one thing at a time, working on what's important to you is something that I would suggest.
That's fantastic. One thing I always tell people is like, you got to be your own best teacher always. Like the teacher can't practice for you. You got to do the work yourself. The teacher is going to guide you, maybe point you in the right direction, but then you gotta go down the road.
Exactly.
Cool. Let's take, all right. We have, Darnell has asked, how long have you been playing saxophone?
So I started playing saxophone in 5th grade when I was 10 years old. So I've been almost playing for 20 years now.
Nice. And I'm going to take I got one last question, and then we're going to wrap things up. And this is from Cole. He's asking, any tips for calming
good question
for a big audition or performance?
So to me, let me think about this for a second, how I want to phrase this. Confidence to me comes from 2 things. It comes from preparation, and it comes from doing it a lot. And the more auditions that you have, the more performances that you have, the easier and the more natural that you are going to feel. The more prepared you are for that audition, for that performance, the tunes like the back of your hand, you have them memorized, you've played them a million times, you've practiced them correctly, you know the articulations, you know how to phrase it, you know how to play with a beautiful sound. If you're super prepared and over prepared, that should help calm those nerves. I'll tell a super quick story. Sorry for all these long answers, guys. I apologize.
Oh, man.
One of the most terrifying musical experiences I've ever had, Cole, was auditioning for the Monk Institute, because they send us 20 tunes to learn. And I only knew 3 of them. So here they sent 20 tunes. I know a lot. I mean, I don't know a lot of tunes, but I know the tunes that you're supposed to know, all the standards, right? And they send a list of 20 tunes, and I know 3 of them. So I think like to myself, oh my, how am I going to learn these 17 tunes I've never even heard of? And so I learned these 20 tunes, I memorized it. I'm shedding my butt off to make sure I have memorized. So I'm like, okay, I feel prepared. I shed these tunes, I have them memorized. I've played them a bunch with friends. I've practiced them. Okay, I'm feeling okay. And then I get there, and in front of me is Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Jimmy Heath, Herb Alpert, like the who's who of like who's choosing to be in this institute, right? And so then I freak out again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to play The Sorcerer or ESP, written by Herbie Hancock, written by Wayne Shorter, in front of Herbie Hancock, in front of Wayne Shorter? Like, what the heck am I doing, right? And so I had to realize that, I'm not playing for them. I'm playing with the people on stage with me. I'm playing with the other people who were chosen for this live audition. And I prepared my butt off to memorize this music. So now it's just a fact of trying to relax, trying to take a deep breath and not worry about who's in front of me, but worry about who's playing with me. And so with preparation and with doing a bunch of auditions and with doing a bunch of different things like that to get that experience and preparation helps you with your confidence.
Yeah, that's great answer. I couldn't agree more. You need to be prepared. The more, if you're not prepared, you're going to be really nervous, but
yes,
you need to practice performing. Like performing is a skill in itself. And the first few times you perform, you're going to be nervous because you've never done it before. So take every performance opportunity you can, do as many of them as you can, and you'll get better.
Yes. And that's kind of the secret of all of this stuff, guys. It's like, think about, for those of you who, I'm sure so many of you play saxophone here, but think about 5 years ago, how you were at saxophone, and think about how much better you've gotten in those 5 years. Why did you get better? Because you spent time doing it. And improvisation and saxophone and art and music, we learn by doing. And so the more that you do it, the more that you spend time, the more confident you're going to be and the more you're going to improve. So we learn by doing.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks so much for this. Has been a really great live stream. Great answers to all the questions, man. And there's so much information. And if anyone came in the middle, go back and listen to this, some of the stuff in the beginning, because there's a lot of fantastic information in there. I put links in the description below to Alex's website where you can kind of get to all this stuff, but also make sure you're following him on Instagram. Check out his albums on Bandcamp and on his website, and also the Soundslice courses, and you have some books and you have loads of stuff. It's all on the website, linked in the description below. So yeah, man, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me, Jay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Let me know who you'd like, who else you'd like to have on one of these live streams.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, these are fun. Okay. Take care, everybody.